The transition period for a matter of months. That hasn't gone down well with Nigel Farage, of course, of UKIP, who is an MEP here. He tweeted this morning, the problem's not Brexit, the problem's Theresa May. What do you mean by that?
What I mean is that if we accept a further transition for another year, which is what's being talked about, that takes us right up to the next general election. You know, just literally a few weeks after this transition is when that would happen. So we face the prospect of fighting an election whilst we're still in transition, a different party getting elected.
We'd be out if it was just a matter of months.
Oh, yeah, hang on. We started off with an 18-month transition. It's now up to 3 years of transition. 3 years and 4 months takes us to the next general election. So there is the prospect of a party winning the election and effectively keeping us in. What she's also conceding to is us signing up to the next spending round in this place, the next multi-annual financial framework. So it's another £20 billion that we'll be paying in with, I would suggest, very little chance of much rebate.
Now, you have never, unlike some other Brexiteers, considered, you've never denied the possibility that there could be an economic shock initially before things get better. There could be a cost. So what is wrong in having a transition to try and iron out that electronic...
Well, the transition was Article 50.
Economic shock.
Article 50 was designed for that. Article 50 was put at a 2-year period, or up to 2-year period. That was the transition period. There's no need for a further transition period. You know, this has gone on...
Except we don't know what we're agreeing to at the moment. I mean, that's what this
Well, that's a failure of leadership. That's a total failure of leadership.
Yeah, but it's where we are, though, isn't it?
I'm afraid it is, yes. Hence, my saying, the problem isn't Brexit, it is the Prime Minister.
But we're not in a state to just leave without a deal, are we, next March?
We would have to move very quickly to sort out technical details, such as aeroplane flights, etc. Could it be done? Yes, of course it could.
What about the possibility of Norway to get to Canada, as people are talking about?
Well, the trouble is, I mean, look at Norway. Norway had a referendum, and guess what? By 52 to 48, they voted not to join the European club. And then, without any reference to the Norwegian people, the Norwegian Parliament signed them up for the European Economic Area, which of course means free movement of people, means obeying most
It means
European...
more restrictions on people than we have at the present moment, doesn't
yes, it does, but it's still effective as a pretty open door.
It's free movement of workers if they've got jobs, which is a considerable change.
Which is better than where we are, but even so, it also means they have to accept, not all, but most European law and make a financial contribution. Now, they've kept fishing, they've kept their independence in some other ways. It seems to me that it's been such a giant heave to even get to where we are, to think we'll go to Norway and then somehow our Parliament will take us on to the next stage. I don't believe it.
But we would be outside the European Union, and there would be the possibility of moving further away from the European Union.
The possibility, but given that our political class has learnt nothing from the Brexit referendum, I don't think that's the right place for us to be.
Do you think there's a chance now that Article 50, the formal departure next March, could actually be delayed?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Is that what they're saying over in the European Parliament?
You know, I mean, the gossip is in the European Parliament, oh, well, Nigel, you'll be coming back here again next spring. What? Well, the argument is, if we're going to have a 3-year plus transition, that would mean, and you've heard the term vassal state being used over and over, that we'd be a rule taker without having any say. One way round that, from the other side's perspective, is you suspend Article 50, the UK contests the next European elections. It's a possibility.
So that means next May you would be standing for re-election, possibly just for 3 years?
I don't want to, but it's a possibility, yes.
And they really are proposing that at the moment?
Well, and you know, the argument is that we would actually have a say during that period of time. Now, all it really means is effectively we are not leaving.
Do you think that would be a better option if we, I mean, I know you don't want it, but if we do have an extended transition period, is that something you would like to say?
No, because I think if we keep making concessions like that, effectively we're simply not leaving the European Union. We're not delivering what the voters wanted. And, you know, we've done all the arguments about economics, you know, whether we're going to be better off or worse off. The fact is, in the greatest democratic exercise in the history of our country, we voted to leave, not just the European Union, but the single market and the customs
But
union.
as you acknowledge yourself, again, unlike some other Brexiteers, it was quite a close result. So in terms of national leadership, total Brexit is not what people voted for, is it?
Well, hang on. Every single leading player on both the Leave and the Remain side said the consequence of voting Leave was we left the single market and the customs union.
We've had this argument before.
And
I mean,
people
change their positions, including you, including Dan and others.
No. You've named one person on the Leave side. Name me another. There isn't one.
You.
All right. Every single leading player said, if we leave the single market, and that.
I mean, you yourself at one point said, what's wrong with Norway? I mean, you're now saying it's about.
No, I'm saying Norway's better than we are. I'm saying Switzerland's better than we are, but it's not what we voted for in the Brexit referendum.
But there is this problem that we don't know. You can't claim 17.4 million people voted for your version of it because all it said was leave on the ballot paper.
No, what you can claim is that everyone that voted on both sides of that knew exactly what it was about. It was about us becoming an independent country. Yeah. And that was no question.
But again, not you, but other people made promises about the economic consequences, which are now demonstrably
at every single general election, all parties say, vote for us, you'll be better off.
Yeah.
They're very often wrong. You know, I've always been honest about this and said, look, nobody can predict the future.
Yeah.
But I believe by being independent, by cutting tariffs from around the rest of the world, we can lower the cost of living.
What about the suspicion of electoral overspending by other groups? I mean, you
agree.
Yourself in your bid for Parliament, you were a victim of that. Apparently, there's a trial going on now.
Look, I think, you know, when it comes to the sheer amount of money that was spent by the Remain side, they massively overspent.
No, the other side were the ones they're in trouble, aren't
they? And the Electoral Commission have done nothing about it. So, yeah, I'm not.
Well, the Electoral Commission have looked at it, and they're now looking at the Leave campaign
the Electoral Commission are not a neutral organisation.
What about Russian involvement there? Where does Aaron Banks get his money from?
I mean, this is laughable, isn't it? You know, well, exactly the same story happening here as is happening in America. I mean, openly it's said that I've been funded for years by the Russians. I've been passing memory sticks to Julian Assange.
Well, you're admitting,
this is hysterical. It's hysterical.
You're not admitting to that. You're not saying...
It's jackanori. It's utter nonsense. But that's what you've got with an establishment who will do what they can to overturn.
So Aaron Banks has never received any money from the Russians?
Of course not. It's an outrageous thing to say.
So you can prove that, can you?
No more than I can prove where your money comes from. But, you know, I am absolutely 100% certain that Aaron Banks' campaign had nothing to do with Russia. And these repeated accusations are just a means of trying to discredit the Brexit result.
Nigel Farage, thank you very much indeed. Well, Judy Girling...